Let's go over a couple of practice problems for quiz 2. And for question 1, we'd like to find the equation of a line with slope 3 that passes through the point 4, 7. You can use two different equations of the line to solve this. I'm going to use y is equal to mx plus b. For this problem, we have to know that, well, the slope being equal to 3 means that m is equal to 3. So I can put this number directly in place of m. And so we get y is equal to 3x plus b. The only thing that we don't know is b, but now we can use the 0.47 to solve for it. So when you say the 0.47, that means when x is 4, y is equal to 7. So we can go down to our equation and say, all right, I'll put 7 in place of y, as long as I put 4 in place of x. This must be true in this given linear equation. The only thing that we don't know is b, and that means we can solve for it. 3 times 4 is 12, and if I subtract 12 from both sides, I get negative 5 on the left, and that is equal to b. We now have all parts of our equation. Y is equal to 3 times x minus 5. This is the linear equation that has slope 3 and passes through the point 4, 7. In fact, if you put a 4 here, that's 12 minus 5, and the y value is in fact 7. Let's solve this linear inequality and express our answer as an interval. So solving a linear inequality is much like solving a linear equation. So the first step should be, well, if there's parentheses, let's multiply things out and then combine any like terms. So I'm going to take this 3 and multiply it to both terms here. We get 2x plus 7 is less than or equal to 3x plus 3, and we have plus 3 again. Now I'm going to simplify the right-hand side. Let's see, that's really 3x plus 6. I think what I'll do next is subtract 3x from both sides. 2x minus 3x is negative x plus 7 is less than or equal to 6. And now I'll subtract 7 from both sides. And we get that negative x is less than or equal to 6 minus 7, which is negative 1. The last step here would be to divide both sides by this negative 1 that's right here. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to divide the left and the right by negative 1. This negative divided by a negative just leaves us with what we want, which is x. And then we have negative 1 divided by negative 1, which is positive 1. But we have to be careful here. I don't want to leave this as a less than or equal to. In fact, this becomes greater than or equal to. Why does this happen? I'm just going to make a note here that in this step, if you divide or even multiply both sides by a negative number, then we have to change the direction of the inequality. So had this been just a positive 2 or some other positive number, I would have left it alone. But here, if you divide or even multiply both sides of an inequality by a negative number, you have to change the direction of the inequality. This question does say express your answer as an interval, and here we're saying x is greater than or equal to 1. So you'd write that as that's everything from 1 and up to positive infinity. In question 3 here, we're going to use this graph of the function f of x to answer parts A, B, C, and D. So to start with, what is the domain of this function? Now, the domain means all of the x values that correspond to the graph. So if you look at this point here, its x value starts at negative 5. And as you travel along the graph, all of the x values go from negative 5 up to until you get to this point here, which appears to be 3. So just by looking at the graph for part A, I know the domain as an interval is everything from negative 5 to positive 3, and including both of those numbers. So here, the reason for this is just by looking at the graph. This is the graph, For all of these points, the x values that correspond to it start at -5 and go until we get up to +3. Determining the range is very similar. We don't consider the x values, instead we consider the y values. So for part B, if we want the range, okay, so the y values for this point start at -4, and as this graph moves up, we're getting all of these y values until we get to this spot right here, which is at +4. So the y values start at -4 and end at +4. So from -4 to +4. Now we'd like to find the coordinates of the x-intercept for part C, and the x-intercept is wherever the function crosses the x-axis, which is right here. So here is the x-intercept, and the coordinates are, that's an x value of -1 and a y value of 0. So for this point, the x coordinate is at -1 and the y value is at 0. The last part here is, what is f of 2? F of 2 means, what is the y value of this graph at x is equal to 2? So here's 2. Here's the corresponding y value, which appears to be 3 from our graph. For this reason, the answer is, in fact, 3.